Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming today. It's a pleasure to be here. In the room, we have retailers, wholesalers, and CPGs. And the issue we're going to speak about affects each segment of the industry. Now, I'd like to ask everyone in the audience what these represent to you. You're probably thinking that these represent how our companies communicate with our customers. And for the longest time, this was the most effective way to communicate. But that is now changing. To my generation, and those that are younger, these represent an era that continued to fade year after year. Every week, more and more people go to their mailboxes, and the first thing they do is throw these in the trash. Good afternoon, everyone. We're Team Paper Not Included, and I'd like to introduce you to Jeanette Rodriguez from Albertson Safeway, Eddie Rojas from Gelson's Market, Stephanie Machuca from Smart & Final, Mike Durkin from PepsiCo, and I'm Nick Kutch from Super Value. We now live in an age where our consumers' needs are changing by the day, and the traditional approaches we use to interact, connect, and communicate with our customers are no longer the most effective ways. For too long now, our industry has engaged in destructive behaviors, such as utilizing a printed paper circular, accepting the use of credit cards at our checkouts, and implementing costly, ineffective loyalty programs. Throughout this presentation, we're going to be using the paper circular as a metaphor, as it represents one of our industry's most prevalent destructive behaviors, and it accounts for a $5.5 billion cost across our industry every single year. Now, all the behaviors I just spoke about simply raise our company's fixed costs and compress margins without adding any additional value to our customers. In an industry where the average bottom line is between 1% and 4%, we simply cannot continue to compete in the ways that we do today. We are asking that each of you in this room go back to your companies and begin developing strategies that move away from our traditional destructive industry practices and move towards profitable competition. While conducting our research, we looked at other industries to see how they moved away from their traditional practices to better meet the needs of their changing consumers. It was fascinating to see how industries such as the airline, fashion, and even gasoline moved away from destructive behaviors and began to utilize technology to become more targeted, personalized, and customized in their marketing, while developing loyalty programs that are effective and promote growth in their customer base. Let's take a look at this chart. What this shows is that although 85% of households are still receiving the paper circular, now 77% of households are utilizing our digital store websites, and 56% of households are utilizing our digital store applications. This is impactful because it shows that the consumer of today is changing and that they want to be communicated with differently. Now, this is a profitable industry, but we continue to face increased pressures from non-traditional companies such as Amazon, Instacart, and Alibaba. If our industry refuses to change, new entrants with disruptive strategies will continue to erode our profit pools. Throughout this presentation, you will hear our group speak about the changing consumer, our industry's destructive behaviors, and we will lay out a roadmap for success as our recommendations.
Consumer preferences differ between generations, and their needs are changing. For us to stay relevant and engage with our consumers, we need to understand these changes. This will allow us the opportunity to create meaningful experiences that are relevant for our consumers. For example, Generation X has the highest spending power of all generations. This generation has embraced technology and has leveraged the internet as a part of their daily lifestyle. Millennials are now 26% of our generation. They want us to connect with them in a way that is personalized and is catering and solving for their needs. Generation Z now makes up 25% of our population, but by 2020 will make up 1/3. As they enter into the workforce, they will be driving purchasing power. This generation wants us to connect with them in a way that is authentic and transparent. Our consumers' needs are changing, and how we connect with them needs to replicate this shift. Technology has created a disruption between the consumer and retailers. It is imperative for us to acknowledge these changes to stay connected with them. The internet now is being accessed by 88% of the population. This informed consumer has now created an opportunity for us to gather data within seconds. The smartphone now has 88% population penetration. The smartphone has created the always-on consumer. Technology has created an opportunity for consumers to purchase an item faster rates than ever, as with the rise of e-commerce. Technology has also created a data platform where retailers can look to see what items consumers are researching, what they're buying, and where they're actually making their purchase decisions at. Technology has created, informed consumers, has changed and created influencing marketing. Influencing marketing is where consumers are going online and determining what peer recommendations are to make purchase decisions. Technology has created a shopper's path to journey, and it has changed. It is more imperative for us to connect with them in more meaningful ways, as consumers want personalized messages that are relatable, and we're engaging with them in a way that is more relevant and experienced for them. The shopper journey has transpired, and it has changed as the internet has become more accessible and consumers' values have shifted. It is imperative for us to connect with them in a way that is more meaningful. The shopper journey has changed, and it has become more empathetic as the values have shifted and we have moved towards technology. In 2017, Sephora was awarded Retail Innovator of the Year. They're the largest beauty retail industry leader and have won numerous awards. Sephora has mastered in-store and online sales by investing in cutting-edge technology and data. I will share a video with you that shows how our consumers are engaging with them today.
I think innovation for me means it's a culture and a mindset of creativity and experimentation. It means we're not scared to push the boundaries.
The retail industry has been through such a transformation over the past decade.
Sephora is doing everything they can to kind of integrate technology and put that into the stores and bring that digital experience that we know the client loves and shape that experience for them with tools that they're familiar with.
We're also fundamentally obsessed with the client. We're obsessed with her.
We're always thinking about what does she want, what are her needs, what are her concerns, and how can we make beauty fun and easy and uncomplicated.
As you have seen, Sephora has engaged in digital touchpoints throughout the whole consumer's shopper journey. They have embraced digital to create valuable consumer touchpoints with personalized services. The grocery industry is not communicating with them in this manner, and it is time for us to move forward and connect with them in this manner.
So our industry is changing. The consumer is changing. They're getting younger. They like to spend more, and they love their technology. We need to take advantage of this opportunity and start to get away from the destructive industry behaviors that we have participated in for so long. Our main example of a destructive industry behavior is a paper circular. As an industry, we spend $5.5 billion a year on the distribution of a paper circular. Large companies spend $45 to $75 million. Mid-level companies spend between 12 and 28 billion, and small companies will spend anywhere between 2 to 11 million, all on distribution of a paper circular that ends up in the trash. We simply cannot continue to do this. We continue to erode our profit margins, and we need to find other ways to market to our consumers. Our next example of a destructive industry behavior would be the bank card swipe fees. In an industry where profit margins are so slim, for every time a customer uses a credit card at our registers, we're giving away 2 to 4% of that transaction to the big banks. We need to find a solution. A few years ago, there was a startup company called Currency. They created a payment platform, which they called MCX, which would eliminate the swipe fees by having consumers sign up using their bank accounts instead of a credit card. They had the backing of many large retailers, but unfortunately, they were beaten to the punch. Apple Pay came out first, and eventually, Currency went away, and the MCX platform was acquired by JPMorgan Chase, and they used it to roll out their Chase Pay. We need to look outside our industry at gas stations. They have found a way to reward cash-paying customers. In essence, they're passing along that swipe fee to the consumer by charging a higher price. Everywhere you go, you see the gas stations. 2 different prices. Not a lot of pushback, and the consumers have accepted it. We need to find a solution along this means. We can look outside our industry, once again, at the airline industry, hotels, and even organizations like Disney. They have found a way to make more revenue by charging for add-on services, assigned seating, baggage checks, and even a fast pass to get you to the front of the line. Now, let's imagine how this would work in our stores. We can have a preferred checkout lane for a fee. We can charge customers for a printed paper receipt. We can charge for valet service. Or we can charge for carryout or curbside service. Now, this may not work for all the retailers, but we need to start thinking of ideas to mitigate these swipe fees. Our last example of a destructive industry behavior would be ineffective loyalty programs. So what would make a loyalty program ineffective? In essence, if you have a loyalty program because everyone else has one, then more than likely it's going to be ineffective. If you're not using the data to drive in new customers, to generate sales, or just to reward your regular customers, more than likely it's just going to be a cash dump to the bottom line. We need to look outside the industry once again at companies like Starbucks, Sephora, and even the gas rewards programs for examples of effective loyalty programs that drive new customers, generate sales, and reward the existing customers. Our industry is at a tipping point. We need to take advantage of this opportunity before us and start to leverage technology and market to our consumers over an omni-channel platform.
Our research and interviews with industry leaders and CMOs has led us to a roadmap in which we can discontinue participating in destructive behaviors that are simply eroding profit margins and causing companies in our industry to lose focus on their true competitive advantage. We're proposing a roadmap in which we change our focus to focus on enhancing the customer experience and really engaging our customers while utilizing technology for our benefit. Now, we suggest that you go back and start this now. It's time to start building an infrastructure for advanced technology that will allow us to communicate to our consumers in their preferred method. Now, by transitioning from paper to digital, it's a $3.5 billion savings. That's $3.5 billion annually by simply moving to the customer's preferred method of communication. Now, we can do this through personalized emails, social media, and an enhanced mobile application. But what we're trying to really do is communicate with our customers rather than pushing information to our consumers at a one-size-fits-all, but rather tailoring our ads to meet each customer's needs. Now, we suggest that you go back and do this by tactically scaling back on your ad circulars while increasing your digital marketing efforts. Now, we realize that this is already on many companies' radars, and it has been for the past 20 years. But our recommendation is that it is no longer merely a topic of discussion, but rather one of action, and that we move forward to to cost savings and to reinvest that money in digital. Now, what we would reinvest the money in, we have a couple ideas. Digital shelf tags. It would result in a labor cost savings, reduction of paper usage, and it would help us streamline databases to reduce pricing errors in our stores. And smart shelving allows us to further communicate with our customers by allowing them to connect in the store by receiving digital coupons and even being able to suggest items that the customer should purchase. And new technology also exists called smart mapping. It allows a customer to import their shopping list into the application and get routed around the store in the quickest way possible. Now, you can invest in this technology or come up with technology of your own, but the underlying theme here is that you need to find out what works best for you and not be worrying about your competitor down the street and just imitating what works for them. By doing so, we're looking for our own competitive advantage and rather not participating in destructive behaviors.
Thanks, Stephanie. We'd like to take this opportunity now to reframe this idea of margin destructive behaviors one last time. In this video that we'll show you, I think we'll all be able to relate to it on some level.
When I started my career in retail, I was handed a playbook that probably looked an awful lot like the one my father or my grandfather would have gotten. And if I followed those same steps, I would have achieved similar success. Today, that's no longer going to be the case. All of these changes and the new experiences that customers are offered online creates a lot of stress on retail to reinvent itself and create new compelling reasons for people to come in the store. And what we're really excited about is the opportunity to take some of those new digital tools and best practices and deliver them into the store where they can influence purchase decisions.
I got a little excited there. Now, though, we'd like you to take this time to imagine you're starting your own grocery store chain from the ground up in 2018. Both you and your CPG partners have limited funds not only to entice customers to come into the store, but to create a meaningful experience once you're there. Would you use that same playbook? Would you use an expensive loyalty program? What about a paper circular? We don't think so. At the beginning of this presentation, we looked at industries that were able to overcome these margin-destructive behaviors and fundamentally redefine how they interact with their consumers. By evolving beyond these behaviors that simply impact fixed costs and don't impact the consumer necessarily in a positive way, they were able to grow margins and, most importantly, profits. Now let's revisit the idea of the paper circular. It has been around a long time, and it's still around and overused in 2018. And it won't be used that much further in the future. Today is day one. We as an industry need to recognize that we're falling behind in key areas like technology and creating a meaningful customer experience across the omni-channel ecosystem. In order for us to combat industry disruptors like Amazon, Alibaba, and even the Instacarts of the world, we need to opt for a win-win environment where we don't simply look at what other retailers are doing, right? We need to do what works for our organizations and what's going to return profit to our bottom line. On behalf of Team Paper Not Included, I'm asking each of you in this room to go back to your individual company, look at your individual destructive behaviors, like this paper circular, and come up with both short and long-term strategies to overcome these. We as a group hope that when we see you in 2019 back in this same room, we're all competing much more profitably. Thank you for your time today. We're Team Paper Not Included, and we'll now open up the floor to any questions.
How do you guys look to utilize vendor funds if you're going to eliminate the paper circular? Because a lot of times that's vendor funded and a lot of the dollars go into that.
I can actually take that question. So I work for PepsiCo, so a CPG firm, and I had a great conversation with actually our marketing folks about that same question because that was kind of one of the first things they brought up to me as well. And what it really comes down to, right, is reinvesting in the customer experience in store. It's not necessarily that those funds should go away and it just goes to the CPG bottom line. The group, I'm sure we'd all love that, right? But we recognize the point of creating a meaningful customer experience as well, right? We want customers to resonate with our products. So if we can take that opportunity to reinvest in something that we think is going to help build our brand and your brand at the same time, I think it's a win-win partnership from that perspective.
Hey, great job back here. I think you guys did a great job. I think all of us like to get out of paper at some point. We recognize the cost. My question is, as you've seen, Facebook's been in the news lately, selling information, and we all know we get pinged and we get bombarded with ads and everywhere we go. Do you think there'll be a point when people don't want to share their information, they see it as an invasion of privacy, and they get to the point that it goes the other way, that I'm getting tired of too many people talking to me about stuff?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and take that. We actually kind of discussed that in class when the whole Facebook thing was going on, and I think from our class, we have a fairly young group of classmates with us this year, and from our perspective, at least millennials and even younger, Now it's going to be different for older generations, but for our generation, I don't think we worry about that sharing of information in the same way that the older generation does, because I know a lot of our classmates here said, yeah, the Facebook thing happened and they took my information, but it's not going to affect them in a way that they would stop using Facebook. So obviously that is a big piece of the pie here on whether or not that would happen if somebody does steal the information. But I think as generations start to get older, I think that sharing of information, the potential of it being stolen, will become less and less important.
And they're continuing to also demand that personalized experience, and the only way you're going to get that is if they share with you.
First of all, great
guys.
job. Great job. Go ahead.
Oh, that was in concert. Go ahead, Kevin.
Go ahead, Terry.
So do you see the transition from paper to digital being different from like a pure EDL operator versus a high-low operator? It seems like uses the ad to communicate value differently.
I think that from that standpoint, it makes a difference, right? If you're high-low or low-low from that standpoint, whatever your price campaign is, but it's all about creating that targeted, relevant experience. So leveraging the money and finding the right consumers that you're wanting to engage in. So you really need a digital platform. Like, for example, I work for Safeway Albertsons, and we have Just For You. And when I'm working with CPG companies or retailers, I am telling them to invest in digital because it makes a larger difference. I see the returns on our investments. We're better engaged to compete, to communicate with that customer and engage with them, repeat business. There's just so much more data analytics to be had to say, you have $10,000 to spend on this campaign. It's much more useful, it's much more tailored. You're able to see if they're coming back to that same product, entice them back with larger thresholds from that standpoint. So I don't think it matters in terms of price campaign, whether you're high-low or low-low, everyday low price. It's about connecting with the consumer and providing those targeted offers.
Thank you.
As I look at that bucket, those three buckets up there, the one that sort of interested me was this swipe fees bucket. 2 to 4% of all the folks that are using some sort of card, right, ATM card or whatever through the banks. Did the group at all get into any discussions regarding different approaches with the banking industry in regards to this 2 to 4%? And is there another way to skin the cat as opposed to them just taking these transition costs or expenses from you?
Well, from our research, we realized that the big banks are actually portraying it that we're making all the money, that we're keeping all that money. So they're actually trying to get more from the retailers. FMI is actually, we found out that it's their number one spend as far as what they're fighting for is these swipe fees. The only way that really avoid it, the currency platform would have worked. It had a lot of large retailers behind it. Unfortunately, Apple Pay came out first, and then you have the pressure from your customers that, well, can I use Apple Pay? Can I use this and that? So eventually, they were just too late to the game, and it never came out. But we need to find a solution, because the way the big banks are portraying it is they make it seem like we're padding our pockets, which is not the case.